Today, Torch Pro welcomes on Lonie Paxton, former NFL player, three-time Super Bowl champion with the New England Patriots. But I think what you've done off the field and your resume off the field is a little bit more impressive than what you've done on the field. But I want to start where it all began, your journey on the gridiron. So where did you grow up playing the game of football, and how'd you fall in love with it?
Man, I grew up in Southern California, in a small town called Corona, which is actually a big town now. But my dad was a season ticket holder to the LA Rams at the time, so we would on top of just like playing youth flag football and basketball and sports and riding BMX, he would take me to NFL games, and we'd go in early and we'd kind of watch all the fanfare and. He wasn't a huge tailgate guy because he'd take me in and we'd watch kind of the theatrics of the game. And, you had the players coming out early, you had the cheerleaders, you had, all the bands and everything going on. And right in front of me was this guy long snapping. And so, I always kind of threw really well, played pitcher. And when I was young, I played the quarterback position because I could throw the best and throw it accurately. And he's like, hey, look at how, that guy's made a career out of what he's doing right there. And, didn't pressure it on me or anything. I just thought it was really cool that he could throw with two hands between his legs perfectly every time. And when it came time for high school football to start, I was like, hey, what do you want to play? And obviously I'm like, I want to play quarterback. And, everyone wants to do all the cool stuff. Yeah. And then you need that position. Say, who can do this? And I raised my hand. I can do it because I've seen it. So it kind of started there and progressed, obviously, to where it got me at the end of my career.
Yeah. When did you transition to become like a full-time long snapper? So I played high school football, didn't get to the level of the NFL like you did, but I was actually the long snapper as well. But I played tight end.
No way.
Yeah. So it's definitely a hard, nervous position. But when did you make that transition? That was like, I'm going to be a long snapper.
Yeah. So it kind of happened at the end of my college career, because when I was in high school and in college, I played offensive line as well. And so I played center, guard, tackle, and kind of utility guy. I started on the O-line, but anytime someone's go down, I'd move over a position. And I also long snapped, and that helped me get to college, helped me get a scholarship, because coming out of high school, I was kind of down because you get all these college letters and your parents are immediately like, oh, look, USC is looking at you. I'm like, well, they're not really, it's part of their like standard issue. They send letters to all these guys who are seniors. And so, there was a little hype that I had chances. And when it didn't happen, I started to get down on myself and hanging with the wrong crowd and all my friends get in trouble and, getting arrested and doing drugs and all these things. And luckily at this time, Sacramento State came in and was just like, hey, we'll give you we'll give you a shot to come up here. So I took a trip and I met some of the best guys. I mean, I still keep in touch with these guys, like a 20-year text message chain, and some of the best influences on my life, playing offensive line and long snapping and whatnot. And so as that happened and through my college career, same idea. At the end of college, I was like, hey, I just want to finish school. These guys are too good in the league. I got no chance. And scouts would come around to see some of these guys because they were really good and ended up being injured, didn't play. But they found kind of me through this process. And, it was pretty funny because one of them, I remember specifically, they asked me, hey, do you have, after the workout, when I throw a few strikes, do you have an agent? And I was like, well, no, how do you get an agent? I have no clue. And they started, giving me business cards. And my first agent ended up being a real estate agent who could just review the contract. It wasn't like this player agent. So kind of a funny story. And, it was just, for me, it was one of those opportunities. You always take that first opportunity rather than pass them up for the best one. You take the first one, in my opinion, that is willing to give you a chance. And that happened in college, happened in the league with the Patriots.
Yeah, it sounds like you just embraced the grind. So now you get to that NFL ranks, and you were the long snapper on some of the most historic kicks in NFL history, right? The Rams Super Bowl in 01. But before that, even, and it's actually hanging on my wall back there, but that's the snowball game.
Could you pick me out is the question. No one can ever figure out which one I am. They think I'm the guy kind of bent over forward, but I'm the guy tripping 90. I'm flipping that big 90 right there.
Let's go. I think, yeah. And again, so was those some of the most nervous moments of your life going out for those kicks?
What's funny is like nervous, I don't know, would be like the right description. It was a little bit of anxiety of like, you go through all these moments in practice. And as you can see with the Patriots game last week, Patriots practice outside in those conditions for that one reason. So when it happens in a game, you're not nervous. So, but for me, the long snapping is such a thankless position. So all you can really do is fuck it up. So I always had in my just, the way I practiced and the way I tried to think about my role was just don't fuck it up. So everything that went into it was like, okay, let's do it right. We practiced to do it right. The guys, the holder and Vinatieri had great confidence in me to do it right. So, for me, it was those conditions kind of suck, but you do it in practice. You're so repetitious at it that I tried to go in as this like Cali kid who didn't really expect to be on the big stage, and oh wow, I'm here, and let's just not think about it. That worked out for 12 years.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And now it's today, ESPN Plus is running some of those Super Bowl years with the Man in the Arena. Have you been enjoying that?
Yeah, I mean, it brings back a ton of memories just watching it, and hearing the way Willie and Vrabel and Teddy kind of describe those teams. I mean, those guys, they were such a big part of the team. I was such a little part, and to watch those guys back then and now to see them recounted, it's pretty special.
Yeah. And so now, as I mentioned in the beginning, you have a really strong resume off the field. So I kind of want to dive into that side of things. And this is based off your LinkedIn. So correct me if I'm wrong here, but some of the things you've done, you're currently CEO of Dotted Lines. You were one of the first Red Bull ambassadors in the NFL. You were senior marketing manager at GoPro, and currently working with Kind Humans and Knocking Point Wines. And so, yeah, I just want to talk about it all. But first, just generally, what fueled your desire to be successful off the field, and what led you to these specific fields?
Oh, well, I mean, let's talk about like what led me there, because like growing up in Southern California, I always had this passion for action sports. And in action sports, it's all about the sticker. It's all about the brand. It's all about the experience that you have at these events and with these athletes. And that was before content was a big thing. So this was like, you had to go to an event to experience it, to feel it, talk about it, tell your friends, and kind of have this word of mouth marketing. So I was really in tune with that, with these festivals and events, and growing up around these guys. And so that was just part of my DNA. And so when I became a professional football player, I would go to those experiences in the off season, or I would bring some of those guys to the games. We would trade swag. So they would send me boxes of gear, and like I would have, everyone in the locker room gets Under Armour, Nike, Adidas. That's what you do. But if they get a cool hat or, a shirt made by a tattoo company, or you have a Red Bull fridge in your locker, they're like, what is this? It's interesting to them. It's different. It's like, it's kind of pop culture to them. So, I kind of became that guy, and I actually tried to work for Red Bull coming out of college, and then turned that into a relationship where I would actually drive like 30 miles to pick up 1 or 2 cases of Red Bull. And then we start winning Super Bowls, and now they're sending me 30 cases. I've got a fridge in my locker. They're flying me to X Games to give speaking events. So I made a really tight relationship with them and their vice president of sports marketing at the time, Paul Crandall, who just became a friend. And throughout this process, we kept in touch. And when I went to Denver, and towards the end of my career, he became the vice president of marketing for GoPro. And so it was like this natural progression that led me to just ask questions of like, what's the idea behind this camera? I think it could be used in team sports for this really cool perspective and training, have a pitcher see what the catcher sees, have a linebacker see what the quarterback sees. And by all these things of like different perspectives mean your training and your experience kind of level goes up. And then parlay that to the fans' experience, getting closer to their favorite player or their favorite kind of moment. It was just like perfect kind of thing for me. And so they didn't give me the job, but they let me talk to the right people and explain this on how I could be an asset to them. And so, I kind of, it falls back to the relationships I built throughout my time in the NFL, and always kind of doing those events that were for free, and going to those functions and having cocktails with the right people, and telling your story and being open to their, they might ask you the 50 of the same questions within the next 15 minutes, but you're building these relationships, and at some point, you need them, they need you. And I was able to draw on a lot of those experiences leaving the NFL and on into GoPro, not only from my relationships I built, but the kind of culture I grew up in Southern California.
Yeah. And I think it's one thing that's so special about being a professional athlete is the platform it gives you. And it kind of gives you in a way that foot in the door. And so I guess how important is it for current athletes to use their influence during their playing years to set themselves up for life after sports? And I guess just, do you have any advice there?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it starts now, it's really hard to think of the end of your career at the start of your career. And so no one wants to do that. You're really focused on them now. But with services like you provide and people who have experience in similar to me of leaving kind of this legacy on the field and trying to build this thing throughout your career, because that is the next stage of your career, are extremely important. For me, it was a lot of follow-ups. It was back then there wasn't a ton of content. YouTube wasn't around, cell phone pictures weren't around, Instagram, all this stuff. And so it was more authentic because I had to actually reach out to people on the phone call and talk to them or go see them in person. Now it's much easier to post something and talk about it, and that's how you show love. And I don't think that's the way to go. I think there's a mix that needs to happen of in person versus like what you put on channels, versus the stuff that's produced versus the stuff that's all you, and understanding that your brand isn't just your social voice, it's everything. And it's those relationships, and it's been tough with COVID and stuff to get to that face-to-face stuff. But when it's open and it's ready, and you are an athlete that can go to events for free, where hey, I expect $5,000 because of who I am, but maybe the scenario is right. Like, take those opportunities and don't look at it as a money grab. Look at it as a long lead opportunity.
Yeah. And I think at Torch Pro, that's what we're all about, right? Is kind of embracing the new age of media in general and really getting your story out there, whether it's to inspire someone or it's to grow your own personal brand, to make profit off marketing dollars, whatever it might be. I think it's super important. And I guess, did you wish you did more of that during your own career, or did you feel like you set yourself up nicely?
Man, I didn't have like like I said, it wasn't, my agent was a small boutique agency, really focused on specialists, long snappers, kickers, punters, coaches, a few other players, but they didn't have like this marketing service. They had a guy who I'm still close with today who would feed me a few things, $500 here or a freebie there. I remember back when I was in 2002 or three, I did a deal with a local bar in Boston called The Rack, because it's no longer there anymore. But, they would provide a limo on Monday nights for me to show up with all my friends, and they would donate, $1,000 to a charity of my choice, have an open bar, have food, and we'd have a free ride home. And so that just kind of spawned this idea of like, hey, a lot of times it's not about the money you put in your pocket at the moment, it's relationships you make, it's the maybe exchange in value that was provided. And then, eventually you're able to capitalize on those things. But, I've always put my best foot first, and actually been out of pocket a lot of my dollars to show, my good faith. I mean, whether it's buying tickets for people, a lot of times, I probably dropped $100,000 in tickets over my career. I'm not saying that's what everyone should do, but a lot of times I didn't ask for the money back. Whether it was for family, that was different. But if it was 4 guys from Red Bull wanting to go to experience this game, I'm not going to charge you because of the things you're providing me away from the field. Or, athletes that are going to, musicians that, I'll be backstage with them and hobnobbing with all the celebrities. Like, why am I going to charge you guys? This is going to be a great experience. So I was all about the experience. I'm still am. It always wasn't about the dollar for me.
Yeah. And now talking a little bit more specifically about the projects that you're working with now, and your hat right now, Kindness Pass It On. I believe that's connected to Kind Humans. Can you just talk more specifically about that project as a whole?
Yeah. So, worked for GoPro for 7.5 years, and due to COVID, they cut like 400 people in a day, and I was one of them. I beat 4 or 5 cuts before that, so pretty proud of that one. And this one was just a sign of the times, which it's all good. So I went through my like sulking period and thought the world was ending like everyone else, and then I got back to hustling and grinding. I put out LinkedIn social posts, a couple BCC big emails about the same thing of like, hey, it's been this amazing ride. I've built this global network of people. Look at all the crazy things we've done as a group, as a team at GoPro, but now I'm a free agent again. So let's do this. And I had a lot of inbound requests of people who either wanted to access the network or understand how it was done through GoPro and content and social and digital and production and stuff. And a lot of those tools, these brands are interested in today. And Kind Humans specifically was founded by one of the guys who hired me at GoPro, him and his wife. He was number 4 employee at GoPro. She sold sponsorships for Feld Entertainment. They got married, and after the IPO, he exited. So through this process, they were just seeing how much waste was created by products and how much, bad materials and ingredients were in food and products that you use. And she did the research, and he has the marketing brain. So they founded Kind Humans, and it's really a sustainable marketplace where, kind of like an Amazon for good, where you can go find all these vetted products. You can read great stories about amazing people doing, unbelievable things, whether it's for the planet, for a cause, for conscious consumption. And obviously when you purchase on the platform, there's a give back. So every time you purchase something, your money's kind of going to support another cause. And so, that inspired me, and the message is great. And it's a bunch of messages of kindness. I drive a big van now that is wrapped in this stuff. And, I consult for a handful of brands. So it's Kind Humans is one of them. Knocking Point's one of them. I got a film project. So I'm trying to diversify kind of all of these opportunities as I exited GoPro.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. And I'm a wine fan myself, so I'm very interested to learn more about Knocking Point specifically, and I guess what that messaging and journey was all about.
Yeah, well, if Matt would share any of this stuff I've sent him, maybe that you get some of the juice.
On blast.
Yeah, so Knocking Point was founded. It's funny because I go to the Derby every year with Tom and Teddy and Bravel and Gronk and these guys. And so through this process, there's celebrity tables everywhere. And again, my wife was friends with one of the co-founder's wife. So we were introduced a little bit through her, but they would go to the Derby, we'd cross paths and we'd high five and slam some drinks and whatever. And some wine would show up at my house. And I remember him saying something about it, but I don't really what it was. And so I just get the wine. That was cool packaging and quirky kind of swag. And so when I sent this LinkedIn post out and whatever, he called me immediately. He's like, hey, you want to do some cool stuff with us? I'm like, of course I do. What's it entail? And so it kind of started with Stephen Amell, who's the co-founder, TV celebrity, and Andrew Harding. And the idea was, he's from Walla Walla. He's got a tech background at MTV. Stephen's the celebrity in the face. So they'd make these like really cool limited edition labels and sell them out. They started making a ton of money this way. And they're like, hey, we need to expand this into other celebrities. They're asking us, like, can we make our own wine? So before I got there, they made a wine with Jason Momoa, Zachary Levi, and many other celebrities, Chris Jericho, the wrestler, and a handful of people, and just slinging this juice everywhere, all direct to consumer. And then when I came on board, it was just after they launched a wine called Quarantine, which was with Mila and Ashton Kutcher, and it did something like $1 million in the month of April 2020 for COVID relief. And so it was all done through direct to consumer, and it was on the Today Show and Jimmy Fallon, all these things, and kind of blew it up. And so they brought me on doing more of this. So then when I came on, I brought in Jesse James Decker and Teddy Bruschi and a Mexican celebrity named Aaron Diaz, who I worked with at GoPro, and Nicole Scherzinger and some other big names. And so kind of do this little collab process with celebs. And then we also have our heritage wines, which is really been kind of the cornerstone of my involvement. We trademarked a wine called Game Time. So it's kind of this like sports centric nod to people who love drinking wine. They don't want to slam IPAs or, vodka on the rocks at these events, but they want to drink rosé and red and kind of experience game, sporting events or what have you. So really leaning into that. We just unlocked distribution in Massachusetts. I was out there for the Pats game last week and kind of going through certain places with the distributor. But it's been really fun, man. And I never was a wine guy. And the only time I drank wine was when other people were paying for it, because it was always expensive at dinner. But this stuff is good. And it's a great process, collaborative process with celebrities, artists, sports teams, you name it. And so, professional wrestlers. So it's kind of applying what I did at GoPro in a different form factor. So lifestyle marketing, but through wine.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm in Boston, so I'm gonna have to check that out ASAP. And it sounds like just hearing about you talk and talk about your story, it really does see, and I can see the transition from sports and your influence there, building relationships and really carrying over into the real world. So it's really nice to see. And I guess tying it back to football, how did the Patriot Way kind of lead to your success off the field and lessons you've learned within that organization carry over in what I say is the real world?
Yeah, it's funny because the Patriot Way kind of got coined throughout the process, but I honestly think it's just the team sports way. It's always about, put the team first, do your job, work hard, be attentive, be accountable. It's all those little things that, to me, in team sports is what a good coach will ask of you. And so, of course, it was called the Patriots Way for a long time, but I just apply that off the field. I try to, in a business sense, in a room where people are going to have a meeting about another meeting, like I'm just over it. I want to get that first down, get that base hit, and like start making moves. And I just hate treading water. And in the corporate world, a lot of times you see that. It really just pisses me off because I can't handle people just talking and saying big words just to make them sound educated. It's like, I'm about getting shit done. So let's make it happen. And if it doesn't work, at least it doesn't work, and then you can pivot rather than just like have these massive ideas that can fill a room, but you can't execute them. So for me, it's all about execution.
I love that. And I guess one more question here before we dive into some rapid fire questions. But I guess if you had one biggest takeaway or theme from your experience, both in life or in sports, that you could pass along to someone that they could really apply to their everyday life, I guess what would that be? And maybe we've already touched on it today.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's understanding relationships. I mean, being in a team sport and guys that all look, talk, smell, dress, react to certain, everything's different, and you got to figure out, how to be yourself, but also how to kind of mix into that crowd of different faces, different places. And so I think that's what team sports taught me is, everyone's always going to have a different perspective, different view, different way they handle it, different way they see it. But if you guys can come to a middle ground and a common thread amongst your idea and your planning and execution, you'll be successful. And so, I think that's a big takeaway from just team sports and in general is be flexible and understand that, you're not always right, and everyone has their own way of doing things. But if you can mix that together to make magic, it'll work for everybody.
Yeah, one thing I've really learned in my life and my journey is it's not always about what you know, but who you know and how you can add value in those relationships as well, and build from there. So that's great. And so, yeah, I would love to finish up with like 10 rapid fire questions. You can say one word, one phrase, go deeper, but we'll just dive right in. So who is your favorite athlete growing up?
Magic Johnson.
Favorite athlete to watch in current day sports?
Tom Brady.
Okay. Best moment of your sports career?
Oh, man. I had a lot of good moments in the league, but the moment when I found out the guys I was competing with got cut and I was going to make an NFL team was pretty special. Like, I remember being in my hotel room and just like getting a call on the hotel phone, like, hey, it's you. And then like, just had to sit down for a minute and be like, wow, that they chose me. Obviously the Super Bowls and all these things mean a lot, but that's where it started.
Yep. Who's your favorite music artist?
Bob Marley.
It's a good pick. Favorite type of wine?
I'm a fan. I just found this out that I like Grenache. I didn't even know this until I started at Knocking Point. So we made a wine with Aaron Diaz, who's the Mexican celebrity, who's a friend of mine, and we called it Pinche wine, and it's good. And so I like that now.
I like it. Best place you've ever traveled?
Australia.
Great.
Western Australia specifically. I went there right before COVID for a GoPro event, and it was pretty special. Saltwater alligators and everything.
Got it. I got two more and then we'll finish up. But what is one word that best describes you?
Passionate.
Got it. And now I have to ask this question. I don't expect an answer, but Brady or Belichick?
Put the team first.
Yeah, there we go. Well, Lonie, I appreciate the time, man. This was a great conversation. And yeah, I hope that these lessons that you talk about in your journey can be passed along to some of the athletes in current day sports, and we can build and start to create some cool content together and go from there.
Thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Lonnie. We'll talk soon.
All right. Tell Matt what up.